GDP in 20 something years.
Perhaps,
And
perhaps.
there's people who are living and writing in society. That is one of the things that I've been on the case for the Caribbean Press for.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Caribbean Press? No, it's only now, and they haven't launched the books yet. But Caribbean Press, the only two people have been published by the state after 22 years of people being in power is Frank Anthony's daughter and a largely out of work person, this who Dabedin um, very condescendingly published because according to him, this Rastafarian guy, they need to publish those on looked over sections of the society. But the intention was to provide a cover for Anthony's daughter being published. That's all it was. So in 20 something, 22 years, those are the first two. And so far, these are the only books they've launched with contemporary new writers producing work, as opposed to the state's publication of Kai under Burnham, for example. So if you contrast those things, you will see how writers have effectively been sidelined in very subtle ways, but very real ways from the public, at least in the state's engagement with itself.
Talking about writing, I want to touch on this before we come to a close.
Uh-huh.
In 2002, just at age 22, you
Yeah,
were the youngest to have won the Guyana Prize for Literature
yeah,
for best force fiction manuscript for a collection of short stories, and then
yeah,
again in 2012 for submitting the best book of fiction. Can you
yeah.
describe for us in your feelings and your thoughts at 22, and then as a more mature person, a more experienced writer 10 years later?
At 22, my intention basically, and it was very brash, very arrogant of me, but I was making the case that there need to be more developmental mechanisms for writers, and the response I got from official channels was local writers aren't that good and they need to write and stop complaining, etc. And my age, I didn't consider my age at the time. I basically saw myself as a local writer. I said, really, this is your thing? I will write and prove to you and submit more writing local writers can, despite the challenges, win this prize.
Royal, lean back just a little bit, please.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I say that I submitted, and it was the premise that local writers can win the prize despite the challenges that they go through with regard to proper environmental writing, etc. So those were my primary thoughts. Then
Hmm.
this year, the intention was that, well, first of all, I had a book and I wanted it to be out there. But this is coming out of a year when, after I'd raised certain issues, one of the things that David Aberdeen, for example, from the comfort of his either his home in China, in England, or his government-funded ambassadorship in China, had basically go out, repeat the very same things about local writing that and was encouraged by the minister and the government in extension that local writers are producing crap. We call it poppy well. No, doggerel, not even doggerel, poppy well. Right. So I submitted, and I also encouraged other local writers to submit. Again, to prove the point. And so when it is that the Guyana Prize came about, only the president turned up as opposed to the previous year when they turned up in full thing, including the form, well, Jaldio. And they said a lot of things. I think a lot of people had thought that I submitted that year. In fact, they said it through the whole propaganda thing. That was an election year that I had submitted and I didn't win, which I did. And so I was being bitter or something. When in fact I did not. So I submitted this year, and the entire court cabinet refused to show up. They didn't send any deputies when I won. The president would have only turned up because he was obligated to turn up. And yeah, but that is And of course, Aberdeen went quiet after. Oh, the other term it was used was lazy and incompetent. Local writers are lazy and incompetent,
Is
including me, or especially me, that I was lazy and incompetent.
is that so?
Yes, those words. Well, that is not only the state, but an agent of the state set up a mechanism that is supposed to publish writers, using it, and I could say without fear of contradiction, using it for their own corrupt purposes. Up to now, Frank Anthony is unable to provide an accurate breakdown of the books that he said has been published, but he's collecting state money for. Ditto for Aberdeen, with regard to who's been paid to look after the editing, etc. And there's no proof that the money is being spent. Forget the governance issues. There's no proof that the money is being spent how it is that they say it's being spent. But what they're doing is they're churning out dozens of titles, particularly out of print books, which, first of all, does two things. The first is that it removes them of the responsibility of publishing writers who live in Ghana, who are writing work that they would find contrary to the image that they want to portray of Ghana. And that's how politics infects everything.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, the more books they produce, the more money they can get from Parliament to produce books. This is where Parliament has failed to adequately scrutinize Anthony with regard to his expenditure, because the the basic evidence of it alone, I mean, if I were in Parliament, I would order a full and comprehensive audit of Anthony's ministry, particularly of him after 8 years at the thing. I mean, the swimming pool issue, the track issue, the Caribbean Press, Carifesta, I mean, you have a black hole of funding on the one minister. Um, but the part of attention to culture, etc., in order for him to be brought to account. And this is where funds that could be spent properly in culture and help to create environment for change um, are quite frankly quite frankly disappearing. Um, so all that to me, and the question was what it means to me. The Guyana Prize last year was basically, I mean, I have no doubt, I have no question, and it's not a composition of arrogance. It's a position that I know my writing, I know its strengths. I don't before I put out the work out there, I give samples to people who I respect, um, and who give me some feedback, and I take that feedback into stride. And and I would say that it is the case where I actually need the verification from any authority or somebody. For me, it's a symbolic gesture that, despite all the crap you have to say about local writers, and myself in particular, this is what I'm able to do. So, you now have to think, you now have to, it shows that what they've been doing is at least in my mind wrong. Hopefully that translates to other people as well.
Hmm.
And hopefully they it encouraged other people to say, well, you know what, you might have had a point, might not have had a point, you made certain claims with regard to um, this person's ability, whatever, and I might have believed you, but now clearly this person has defied you and still made his ability known. And I think we have the only thing, essentially, I mean, that divides me from, I think, other emerging young writers in Guyana is the first is that I have been at it for a very long time. The writing is an art, and with any art, it takes practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something that you have to hone. You have to put it out there and have it tested.
Yes.
And the
Very.
second thing is that I've dared to write. I've dared to operate as a writer. I mean, I had to fill out a visa application form just now, and the consular officer was asking me, "So you're a writer?" And I was in all confidence, after a very long time, without any sort of double thinking, I could have simply said, "Yes," because that's what I do. I write. I mean,
Yes.
I do other things are really that do other things. Yes, I mean, for example, I come up with this cultural policy thing, but that only came about because I chose to write.
What are you most proud of, Ruel?
Huh?
What are you most proud of?
No, again, this is my son. I don't. You could write dozens and dozens of books. You could do whatever, but he is the one person that I have the most direct impact upon in life. The one person I'm obligated to in any way, and I am not the perfect father. Nobody is. That said, I mean that I mean, his mother and I are no longer together, so my ability to be a father to him in the most complete way as possible is automatically sort of stymied because we're
What
not
is
co-parenting anymore. But that said, um, he has a certain moral code that I believe reflects our interaction,
mm,
who he interacts with, etc. I mean, and yeah, and the thing that one thing that I'm insanely proud of and may seem insignificant, um, but in this day and age, I think it's huge in that first he uses technology a lot, right? But for example, I'm over here now, and I got him a phone, and he apparently downloaded this program WhatsApp, and I got a little conversation. Hey dad, hey son, I just downloaded WhatsApp and stuff, right? Um, he asked me to buy a sandal to him, or he said I go and sleep now, but he always types wherever he does. He types in complete grammatically correct standard English, and this is
Chipper?
an age, and he's 10.
Wow.
This is this is an age where everybody is shortening their words and stuff, and I can't do it. I've never been able to do it. Even in texting, I cannot type just the letter U for Y or U. I use commas, etc. He's a bit careless with his commas, but he's not thing. But um, the last message he says, "Can you buy a sandal for me?" I'm wearing size 9, which is a huge feat. But so for me, for somebody who works with language, etc., who has a respect for language, um, that I'm proud. I'm extremely proud of that. I mean, I get giddy whenever whenever I see whenever I see him type something. No? I get like yes. But I mean,
That's commendable. I just have a few more questions for you. What is it about your writing that feeds your spirit?
um, what was it? I I write it's not tough, but the act of it in itself. I mean, I write a lot of my stories are might seem intensely personal,
Uh huh.
um, but and a lot of them. Again, I I think that's probably the best way I've done so far. It's called the paternity test,
The what?
and it's the paternity test,
Mm.
and it's last year like last year it won the Small Acts Award from fiction, um, and it's a story that for me was an examination of fatherhood, etc. And from it sort of going through it was painful. I mean, writing it was extremely painful. I took like what 2 years to write it. No, longer. No, far longer. I finished it last year,
Mm.
and it was I started it since 2008. So no, it actually was much longer. So 2007 I started it. Sorry.
Wow.
In the wake of in the wake of my divorce, etc. I started it, and so and I kept adding to it bit by bit. It's not too long a story, but it for me, it's a reaffirmation of myself, as a person, as a thing, and that's when all the politics are stuff.
Is
But
it cathartic?
it is, yeah, it's as cathartic as a story can get
Yeah.
for the person creating it.
Mm.
I think it'd be far more cathartic to the person reading it.
Ah.
Uh, but I guess the writing of it was sort of cathartic, but it is essentially a story about fatherhood and how it evolves over time, and the fact that it continues, fatherhood continues. It doesn't. It ends when you die, and very often it doesn't. Um, as long as the children will remember you, and you have an impact of that. Well, an impact more than genetic impact, naturally. Um, so it was a sort of, I guess, a periodic catharsis. Um, yeah.
Mm. Do you, are you hopeful that if you start with the youth and through the efforts of the Janus Cultural Policy Initiative that racial harmony is possible in Guyana?
I think that from the perspective of youth, that is virtually inevitable. It doesn't matter the time. So I don't. I think that the old ways of seeing things are essentially falling apart. When I used to go to UG 13 years ago, right? 13 years ago when I used to go to UG, I, I go anecdotal example. You Interracial couples were scarce, were scarce, and they were looked at as this thing. I went up there the other day, a couple of times, more than once I went up there the other day, and it's like transformed. I mean,
Wow.
they're everywhere, and so I think that's going to be natural. I think the policy can help to is first of all to directly at this point in time challenge those old attitudes and bury them. Like deserve to be buried,
I agree.
and help young people.
You think the old ways, or some of it, um, to some degree, is a socio-cultural albatross for Guyana?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, no, it is the social cultural albatross again. I mean, we need to get it out. We need to find some sort of atonement for ourselves, and our atonement will come from the young.
I agree. I totally agree
Uh,
with that. I totally agree. Uh, how would you like to be remembered, Ruel?
um, Again, by my descendants, by my children, as 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 somebody who in a very personal sense was useful. Um, I think there's any sort of the greatest legacy you can have. I mean,
Hmm.
I have great plans for Guyana. I have a very regionalist view with regard to the Caribbean, and I have some opinions on what goes on globally. But that's only from a very practical sense. Certain things need to be done, and I have a role in doing them. But the moment um, I finish, I'm not big on memorializations. I'm not big on that thing. The moment that I finish, that's somebody else's work to get done. I don't think people need to spend time on memorializing people, etc. You acknowledge the good that people do, but in fact, one of the key problems that we have in Guyana is that people have memorialized leaders despite their flaws and despite their shortcomings. So there's an image of Burnham that continues to exist. despite his flaws, and this image of Jagan continues to exist despite his shortcomings. And this image of Rodney, even despite his own shortcomings, it continues. And that skews any sort of practical thing that can be done with regard to fixing the society as it is now. How many people in the PPP who've seen how the PPP has transformed and become this sort of rabid monster hold on because they tell themselves that, you know what, I knew Jagan and this is what he stood for. And so as a memorial to him and to remember him, I will not be critical of this party that he created, yes, but which has transformed itself into the very monster that it claims it's for. And that's the problem of memorials. So outside of the personal, familial thing, if there's anything I want to be remembered by, it's by my literary writing. And that's because, and again, that's a very personal thing. If it is that
You
100
said,
years from now, yeah, if it is that 100 years from now somebody can pick up a book that I wrote and get into the sort of conversation with me in the same way that I get into a conversation with somebody else, or Zola, or Walker. That sort of very personal conversation from a writer to a reader. That is how I want to be remembered. But even then, that is not memorialization or memory. That is an active engagement. It's just, yeah, that is literature has a very useful role, a very active role to play in a person's life.
something.
So
Sorry, go ahead, Roel.
yeah, no, that's it.
No,
Yeah,
something struck me just now when you mentioned about being in the beginning of the answering the question about how would you like to be remembered. You mentioned
yeah,
something about being used by the moment, or being used by your country. But you also mentioned that your views are regional. Is it
hmm
fair to call you a nationalist? I just want to tie these two factors in. Is it fair to call you a nationalist, a Guyanese nationalist?
yeah. In a sense that in a sense that I think that I'm a nationalist in the sense that I think that we live in a nation that still needs to be defined. Not a nationalist in the sense that
Uh huh. Okay.
that
Okay.
there's this concrete nation that I stand for, and that is bullshit. Nationalist in the sense that somebody who thinks that this space that I was born in, that I insist on remaining in, is in a constantly evolving state of definition, and I want to commit myself to contribute to that definition of a nation. So in this sense, I think I'm a nationalist.
Gotcha. You obviously, at least from what I see, has
Uh,
the ears, or the eyes, I should say, of the diaspora,
oh,
and
I,
I see the evidence by the reaction to your posts and so on, which is a very good thing. Um,
yeah,
and I guess for many various reasons, but you do have their attention. If you could give them or send a message this evening to these eyes and
yeah.
ears, what would you say?
Um, I would say the fact that the people who in the diaspora that still consider themselves part of this tenuous um, entity that's still evolving, that can be seen as a nation, to use the opportunity out there to cast off the divisions
Mm,
that plague us and commit overall. Whatever you might have traditionally supported, commit overall to making sense out of the chaos. And we've had only the mirage of order in this place. We only had the mirage of democracy. But help as much as you I self-identify with being from this place, help to shape it, play an active role in shaping it. Um, and hopefully, in the future, play an active role in occupying it, occupying whatever is created in the future. Um, Understand that life can be better out there and stuff, but done right, Guyana has tremendous potential for good in the sense of the word. It might not be the amount of skyscrapers we have, etc. Might not be what we can create if we get ourselves together. We can create a quality of life, a human quality of life, um, by best indicators. That is not necessarily wealth, but that'll come to some degree. But a human quality of life um, that in many ways is comes out of something that's new to the world. We have the best opportunity. You see it being done in some issues of Trinidad, but they have the issues of crime. Okay, issues of crime, etc. You have other things that plague these other places, but and this is why I identify Ghana as part of this larger regional thing. But Ghana, I think, has the ability to lead in that area, even or particularly because we've had the most turmoil and the most. I think can have an elastic effect. We're coming out of the particular pull upon development that has plagued us. We can be elastic and spring forward in much ways like Asian economies did. In many ways, like say Rwanda has done, coming out of great turmoil into something stronger that has been formed not despite, but particularly because of the pressures. I think what is happening now, what's happened throughout history, is that there's been a constant testing of the structural integrity of our society.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we've survived. We've survived tenuously, but we've survived. Now we need to transform. We need to do more than survive. So the diaspora, I believe, can assist greatly in terms of resources, in terms of just a voice, even in terms of finding out what needs to be done, in terms of lobbying. I mean, I wrote a couple of years ago. I wrote an article on the Caribbean diaspora. I think it's available online, and how it is that in places like America, for example, even a small diaspora that is coordinated well and coordinated as a unit um, can serve as an effective lobbying entity in these powerful economies and can help when it is that we want to say in terms of our negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, time is upon us, my brother,
Okay.
and I want to
Yeah.
thank you so much for spending this time. I didn't take any breaks. I'm sorry about that, but
That's okay. That's okay.
I think there was a lot to cover, and I just wanted us to get it out of the way. What answer this last question for me? What makes you laugh out
Sure.
loud?
Makes me laugh out loud. My little brother. I have a young brother called Elijah.
Yes.
Um, I literally caught a fit laughing at one point with some joke he but no, he is. I think one of the things I'd like to do is see if I could get to encourage him and get him some sort of comedy thing. But he is extremely intelligent, and intelligence is always a prerequisite for the creation of humor. And very often his humor is politically incorrect, but but it's also in that extremely profound at times. Or even like I'll give you one simple example. I mean, and he's so sharp at it. Like like I when Mark Bench introduced me to Alex Griffin, This young guy that got shot by the policeman
Hmm.
in his mouth. And Mark was helping the family to, and by the way, Mark is a tremendous, I think Mark deserves some sort of award when it is that the proper people are in place and give him one. Um, but Mark introduced me, Sarah and I, to the Alex, and we had a conversation with him, and we donated I donated some money to him, and to encourage people. Mark took a picture in Oasis Cafe with Sarah, the young guy, and I, and give a thanks to the donation. Thanks for the donation. My younger brother saw the picture, and he immediately shouted to my mother. He saw it on Facebook. He immediately shouted to my mother and said, "Mommy, shoot yourself in the mouth quick. Run and give you some money."
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was trying.
Exactly, exactly.
I'm trying. I was trying to avoid laughing.
Laugh out loud. But yeah, if you want somebody who gets to laugh out loud,
Oh
without
man.
skipping it, without skipping. So whenever I'm there, my mother, because remember there was actually, he made some, I started laughing, apparently they blacked out for a little while, and I was twitching. It's the only time I ever thought has been catching up to or something, but I blacked out and I was twitching, and it was that funny. I think my throat got constricted or something, like I couldn't stop laughing. And so whenever I'm there now, whenever I'm there now, my mother says orders him to be not to be stop being that funny because she doesn't want. She's actually genuinely concerned that they might catch a fit.
You should get this guy in some sort of comedy club or something like that.
Definitely. In fact, I'm trying to. I actually started a project where I was trying to get a list of the funny things that he said, and it's like it's not constructive. It's nothing. It's like,
But my brother, I gotta run. But
all right,
let's,
fella.
this was really great, and enjoy your stay in the rest of your stay in Suriname, and give my
All right,
regards
fella.
to the lovely Sarah Barrett.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
She's probably
man.
upstairs there,
All right, good. Good
grumbling
night.
because it's a sort of a working trip as well. So,
Well, good night, brother.
all right. Thanks a lot, so
You're
it's been great.
welcome. Take care.